Hey, it's your girl Latanya Moore here with Real Perspectives. We are honored to have the big game hunter, Mr. Jeff Altman, as our guest today. Now, he is the head coach for JobSearchCoachingHQ.com. It's a site where Jeff answers questions for job hunters and provides curated information you can watch, you can listen to, or read to help you find work more quickly. He is also the host of No BS Job Search Advice and Job Search Radio. Both are in iTunes, Stitcher, and other online syndicated formats. Jeff is here with us today because he's going to talk about how to take the BS out of the job hunt. So, Jeff, welcome to the show today.
Hey, thank you, Latanya. It's nice to be on. I appreciate the opportunity to serve your listeners.
Awesome. So before we actually just dive right into the career part of this, you have to tell us, how did you get the name The Big Game Hunter?
That was easy. Part of it was branding, and part of it was just listening to my clients. And it started off really of trying to figure out how to differentiate myself from every other person who says they're a recruiter, a headhunter, VP of Talent Acquisition for North America, all these pompous titles. And for all you know, for most people know, there's nothing that really differentiates one recruiter for another. Even that person with that big, lavish title, they can have 20 minutes of experience doing recruiting. So I decided to simplify it, and the term popped into my mind. I tested it with a number of people who knew my work, and they loved it because they really felt it reflected. Because at that point, as a headhunter, I was hunting big game for people.
Awesome. I love it. Because, again, we all know that a lot of people are looking for jobs. Let's just be realistic. And not just a lot of experienced folks, but you also have the people that are getting out of college or those that are entering the workforce for the first time. And so to know that there's a big game headhunter out there is really awesome. Talk with us or give us the backstory about how did you become to be a part of this whole employment and job search, career development area?
Well, back in the Stone Ages of 1972, I was graduating college, and I had a degree in political science, which, of course, qualified me to do absolutely nothing. And I started interviewing with insurance companies and any other firm desperate enough to consider hiring someone with no experience and a degree in political science. I walked into an employment agency. They hired me because I came up with the answer to a question that they had that even I use these days. If you had a lot of money, what would you do with it? And my answer was, I'd have a big lunch every day. They love that. So that's how I got hired, and with time, I got away from all the nefarious and corrupt things that the recruiting industry is unfortunately too well known for, cleaned myself up, and started to conduct myself in a very different sort of way that's made me very attractive to both institutional customers and to job hunters alike.
And that's really good because for many of us that have been in the workforce for a number of years, and even, again, those that are looking to come in, it's really good to know how other people got started. And I know that one major facet of your brand is coaching. Now, you have a coaching, I don't know if it's necessarily a program or a method called No BS Coaching. Tell us about that.
That's a broad platform for me because I coach people to play big. And unfortunately, so many people look at small things in life, and those are important because to me they're stepping stones to the big part of your life. So that's the part of me that goes broader than just simply job search. No BS coaching is really about helping you play big in the world. And I also want to underscore the word big and play. And play to me is the part of us that likes to have fun, that unfortunately gets beaten out of us beginning in the school system and works our way up into the job. This particular place, do what you're told or else. And from the time we're in school until the time eventually we get brought into a conference room and told that we're laid off, we're trying to be obedient boys and girls. And we lose that spirit of play that really makes us unique. So in my coaching life, in that part of my coaching life, beyond simply job search, I work with people to reintroduce the spirit of play. I'm not asking you to quit your job tomorrow anyway, but I'm encouraging people to bring the spirit of play into their life, to delight in so many of the things that they do. And that's the coaching method that I work with there.
Great. Because again, this adds that, it gives that extra value add. And I know that you work with a lot of people really at all career levels. But have you noticed if there is even a difference between how a person with, let's say, entry-level experience and a person with multiple years of experience, have you discovered if there's any type of way that they should handle their job search differently?
Well, the first thing starts off with the notion that most people don't know how to job hunt. And looking at it from the perspective of a job hunter, they think that if they're obedient girls and boys and answer all the questions right and paralyze their personality, and they're going to get hired. And when you think about it, LaTanya, you've helped people find work. You write resumes and you do a whole host of things. And when you talk to individuals who are job hunting, they're way too polite and they're way too nice, and they don't know how to engage in a job search. They just don't have the knowledge. So whether you're a beginner or an advanced person, you don't know how to read the tea leaves. You haven't been there before. And even if you've hired people, you think the way you hire is the way that other people do. You don't have perspective. So what I try to do is deconstruct the mythology from my lengthy experience doing recruiting and talking to clients and listening to what they tell me, and translate that into job hunters, translate that for job hunters so they can perform. Now, I'll also go the extra yard of saying most job hunters have never practiced and know nothing about job search. And I'll use the example of, most of us know about the 10,000-hour rule, Malcolm Gladwell, and it takes 10,000 hours of concentrated effort to become a master at something. And he uses the story of the Beatles as one of his stories, and I think it's Bill Gates is another one, about how they went into a crucible of some sort that allowed them to get that 10,000 hours of experience. So job hunters, let me ask you a question. How much experience do you have writing a resume? Or interviewing, or negotiating salary, maybe. Maybe 4 hours. And that's the problem for most of you. They're amateurs. So even in the area of interviewing, which is the professional version of dating, they have no experience, and it's no wonder they don't perform. So that's what Job Search Coaching HQ is about. It's designed to help people watch, listen to, or read great material that's going to take the mythology out of job hunting, and then from there, it's up to the job hunter to practice. Because like any skill, well, I'll use the example of athletes. I don't know of any athlete who's great who doesn't practice incessantly. Baseball teams, football teams, basketball teams, they constantly practice. Basketball team, they're practicing foul shots, they're practicing situations. Job hunters do exactly no practice, and that's where everyone falls down.
And that's really interesting that you bring that up, because I know for a while, although I don't offer this service anymore because no one really took advantage of it, I was actually providing a mock interview service. It was just an entire package you could buy. So you could get your resume reviewed with the suggested changes. You could do all of those things. And so after that, you could then turn around and you could get a mock interview under real circumstances and real time, depending on the type of interview that you were coming up against. So we had telephone interviews, we had panel interviews, we had performance-based interviews, all sorts of things that we offered. And so I may have gotten one client to take advantage of that service. And it's funny because you're exactly right, because I've had people call and say, well, what do I do about this interview? Or, oh, man, I think I bombed the interview. And again, it's for lack of preparation and lack of being prepared. And so that's really great advice. I love it, and it helps me to know that wasn't just a bad option, a service option that I used to offer some time ago. In addition to that, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was about to say, it's actually a great option. And I go the extra step of telling people, because people think if they watch a video or read a book about how to answer questions, that's enough. I believe that, frankly, the words have to come out of their mouths. You need to practice hearing what you say. And what's ideal is I've been telling a number of my coaching clients, practice with someone. Get feedback from them, whether it's someone like you who offers a service, or someone like me who does that, or a friend, wife, husband, partner, whomever. If you're in a certain discipline where there's expert knowledge involved, whether it's accounting, engineering, IT, you might want to do it with someone who can ask you the professional questions. But for so many, the words have never come out of their mouth until they're sitting opposite the interviewer, and then they're out of their depth. So you need to practice, folks. You need to be like the people you watch on TV or see in a stadium or arena. They're out there practicing for hours to get ready, and they've got great talent. But talent isn't enough. Talent needs to be harnessed in focused ways in order to deliver great results.
Awesome. And so let's go back just a bit, because, of course, in order to get to that interview, you have to have a resume that stands out. Again, there are thousands of people that are looking for jobs. And so what are some things that candidates can do to make sure that their resume stands out?
So the first thing I remind people of is to get your resume seen by someone. Never ever apply for a job through a tracking system if you can avoid it. Avoid the ATS because, again, it's screening for things that are positioned at certain levels in your resume and certain densities and other nonsensical things that makes it hard for you to beat the system. Better to get your resume into the hands of a hiring manager or someone who is close to the hiring manager. Secondly, no one per se is looking at resumes anymore. When we think of resumes, we're thinking of a piece of paper. And instead, we're actually looking at screenshots. So the important parts of your resume, the things that verify that you're able to do this role, should be within one page down at most, and ideally within the first two-thirds of the resume if you were to have printed it out. So it's in that first screenshot that you would see. Another thing I always tell people is never embed a header because, number one, some applicant tracking systems have trouble parsing your contact information. And number two, because sometimes when you embed headers, when they go on to page two, people have different versions of Word. And as a result, sometimes the resume lays out differently than you want it to. You only need your contact information on page one. It never needs to carry out onto other pages because that's an anachronism from the days of old when we actually did print resumes out and we stapled them together and put them in piles on our desk, and no one does that anymore. It's all in systems. The third thing I want to mention, and I understand why people have done it. You take an address out and you just put your name and phone number there, but think of it from the systems standpoint. If I'm a recruiter looking for you in the future and I have a job that I'm trying to fill, how do I search for you? Answer, I'm looking by skill, but I'm also looking within proximity to geography. In days of old, area codes could substitute. But we've all got mobile numbers now, right? And those numbers don't correlate with the area that we live in all the time. Like, for example, I live in North Carolina. I've got a 516 number on my mobile from the days where I lived on Long Island outside of New York. Who would ever know that I'm in North Carolina? So you need to minimally put city, state, and zip code on your resume. I understand why you don't want to have address because you're concerned about identity theft. I got it. But your city, state, and zip code is a guarantee that you can be found in the future if you're submitting your resume to a third-party recruiter or even to a corporation that actually will database things after your interview.
That is really great. Oh, it's awesome, and it's certainly some things that even I hadn't thought about. But you're exactly right, and because I know that when I work with people, and Jeff, my specialty is federal resumes, which have their own format. But I always tell folks, no matter what, always put that listing up front that kind of encapsulates everything that you do, and it's for that very same reason. So great advice. But in addition to our entry-level folks, there are a lot of people, if you look at studies, of course this was not the case probably about 20 years ago, people are getting mid-career and they are just looking for a change. So you have people that are 10, 12, some even 15 years in to a career. They're in middle management, some of them even upper management, and they've made the decision that they just want to do something else. They want a career change. They want to do something either tangentially connected to what they're doing or something totally different. What type of advice would you give someone who's very experienced but they're looking for a career change?
Number one is do not quit your job instantly, even though you may feel depressed. You may feel, is this all there is? And that kind of goes back to that thing I was talking about earlier where I spoke about how people are conditioned to behave themselves from the time they walk into school until they're brought into the conference room and laid off. People try to do the right thing. They're conditioned to do the right thing. And then they discover, is that all there is? And decide it's time to do something else. So the first thing I encourage people to do is start bouncing ideas off of someone. It's a place where coaching comes in very handy because a coach can help you coalesce different ideas that you have and see things that you don't see. So a good coach isn't going to give you answers. They're going to give you a better class of question to ask. And what I also encourage people to do is once you have that idea, remember, that first idea you have may not work. You may decide it's not right, and you shouldn't just turn tail and go back to your old solution of that old job that you loathe. Continue to explore, experiment, make mistakes. It's okay. And do it as a part-time thing. Do it as something on the side, because especially with another recession on the horizon, and I just say it not because of any particular expert knowledge, even though I do think there are tea leaves out there that suggest it, we're going to have another recession. And cushioning yourself with a part-time job on the side can go a long way toward giving you financial staying power to ride out the hurricane that I think the next one will be.
Awesome. Great advice. Now, in addition to job seekers, you also have worked with employers and staffing agencies. What are some key things that you believe that employers are looking for in their candidates?
Well, I've consolidated that idea into a couple of things. Ostensibly, one thing is competence. But we all know stories of people who are hired because, despite being incompetent. And the statistics prove that out, because there's one statistic that says a year after hire, 60% of all hiring managers have buyer's remorse. So it's not just the hire and being disappointed there. There are other variables that come into play. So competence is one thing. Self-confidence. Can you inspire confidence that you're the solution to a need that they have, which is a purely emotional, reaction they need to have. So if you're being that polite, obedient job hunter, you're not connecting with them on a personal level. So self-confidence, character. Character is, frankly, do you have character, or are you a character, or some combination of both of them? And some firms want that combination. That's great, particularly in sales roles. Chemistry, and that one's a problem for me, but I have to be honest, firms conduct themselves looking like they're qualified to evaluate chemistry. And I say, this is the place where bias, unfortunately, sets into the hiring process. I just did a video recently about this, and I've written about it many times. And, it's not like firms go out and do, measured assessments of their own people to look at what the personality type is that are hired, and then go out and find comparable personalities. No one does that. Instead, they say, we want to hire someone like Ramesh up on 4. Yeah, he's good. Or reminds me a little too much of Beth. Or, obviously race, age, sexual orientation comes into play, where they become concerned about, this is an all-black organization, or this is an all-white organization. We're going to introduce the first of the other race to the crew. So I'm always a little concerned about chemistry in there, but we have to acknowledge that they do this. And to me, I'm sorry, one more variable: charisma. Charismatic people always do better than non-charismatics. And that's the ones that they just radiate that certain quality about themselves and how they carry themselves and present themselves. And, you don't have to be charismatic, but it helps. And my proof to that is I'm going to point to a couple of presidential elections, and let's see if we can figure out who the charismatic candidate was. And this isn't about politics. This is just about how the American electorate voted. Let's try this one. Obama-Romney. Obama-McCain. Clinton-Dole. Oh, God, that was awful. Clinton-Bush. Reagan-Carter. Reagan-Monte. These are historic names. A lot of your listeners won't know them. But the first 4 I mentioned, it's pretty obvious that we elected the charismatic person, even though we might not have necessarily agreed with their politics at the time of election. So, charisma comes into play, and all this translates into what I call personal leadership. The qualities within an individual that causes a hiring manager to say, I don't have to worry about this person. They'll take care of themselves and do what I need them to do.
Right, absolutely. I love it. I love it. That's really great, and it's some really key insight that I think is going to be so useful and beneficial to our listeners. In addition to all these things, you really offer a robust amount of services, and you mentioned books that you've published and some videos that you've worked on. Give us an overview of those products.
Sure. I believe that the skills needed to find a job are completely different but complement the ones needed to do a job. So if you do a search on Amazon in the Kindle bookstore, I have a terrific little book called The Single Best Question You Should Ask on Any Interview. And it's 8 or 9 books, including books about resume writing. I've got guides that are designed to focus in on particular crafts. Some of the books are basic books, like my first one, which was Get Yourself Hired Now. The Big Game Hunter's Guide to Headhunting Your Next Job and Every Job After That. That's a good basic book. But I encourage people, instead of buying these books individually, join JobSearchCoachingHQ.com. They're all available there as part of the program. You join and pay monthly, or you take a quarterly membership. You have access to all my books and guides. Right now, there's over 400 pieces of content there and growing. That's all designed to help you no matter where you are in the job search, whether you're a rookie, who's decided to come out of school and this is your time to find your first job, or the experienced person who's an executive who just needs some advice. And one of the nice things there is you can ask me questions, and I'll answer them geared toward you, not a general thing like the videos will tend to be, but it's specifically geared toward you and where you are in your job search. So, you can buy them on Amazon as Kindle books, but I think you're better off just joining JobSearchCoachingHQ.com.
Awesome. And so what would you like if you could kind of encapsulate all that we talked about today, what would you like for our Real Perspectives listeners to take away from the Big Game Hunter?
Sure. And this is something I think goes beyond simply job search. Help is not a 4-letter word you should avoid. There are certain 4-letter words to avoid from your vocabulary. Help is not one of them. It is great to get professional advice, and as I learned in coaching, and I shouldn't say learned, I was reminded of in coach training, sometimes it's better, and we feel better about ourselves, when we ask for help and we get someone who's more masterful at something than we are, who we can trust. I'll use a simple example from creating the website, video editing. Some of my videos needed editing. I'm not a video editor. I could learn how to do it, but I'd rather hire someone who could edit a lot of my videos. I'd rather pay someone to do that and have some time. Well, would you rather figure out things through trial and error, or is it better if you get the advice proactively so you don't lose some of these opportunities that you work so hard to get? Hire someone to coach you. I'm happy to do it, and I hope to see you on the site.
Awesome. Well, Real Perspectives listeners, you have heard it. So, Jeff, share with us that website one more time.
My pleasure. JobSearchCoachingHQ.com. We're coming out of beta in the next couple of weeks. Right now it is web only, but we'll have the mobile version very soon. And for that reason, the price is approximately half of what it will be when the mobile site is complete.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much, Jeff, for being a part of our show and just really sharing all of those great nuggets with our listeners. I know that they are definitely going to be inspired by listening to you and encouraged, because you've given them a lot of great tidbits and tips that they really should be implementing immediately. Again, go to Jeff's website. I would encourage you guys to go ahead and just join his coaching program. I mean, the reality of things is that a lot of us need this, and so I'm going to encourage everyone to do so. And until next time, I'm your host, LaTanya Moore, with Real Perspectives, where we seek real people, real issues, and real solutions from real perspectives.